Hi, everyone. Hoping you're all staying safe out there. And to help you guys maybe pass some time if you're stuck at home, here's another episode of our season for 2020 of Voice Actors. Just a little note, we did record this before things got exceptionally worse. And some of the things that we feared would happen in this discussion did happen. So if you want to reach out to our guest, some of the things he was looking forward to could no longer happen. But that's the same with a lot of us right now. Disneyland, all these other things closing down. But hopefully you guys enjoy our guest. So Zach, do your thing.
To speak for those who seek him so that their names may one day speak for themselves. An esteemed guest. A voice lent to cause and meant to inspire. Mr. Joshua Alexander joins us from advancing the aims of eco-friendly enterprises like 4Ocean to hosting VoiceOver Drive on Instagram every Monday at 1 p.m., a weekly recap providing a glimpse into the life of an artist and the process of carving a pathway into and through the industry. In Joshua Alexander, we've a guest whose career spans nearly 3 decades and whose mission is to elevate those who seek to live the life of the voice actor, guiding them through its practicalities and sharing with them its joys. And it is our joy, Mr. Alexander, to share with you the privilege of your company and conversation. Welcome to the Fanatarium.
And with that, welcome to the show, Mr. Alexander. Or you're going to call Josh, Joshua, Jay, Mr. J.
Oh, that's so many choices. I don't think I'm picky. You just don't call me late for dinner, I think is the time-honored line.
Well, welcome. And, I have to say congratulations. You have a book that just came out like last week.
Thank you. And yes, I do. Yeah, I'm really, God, they talk about you put blood, sweat, and tears into something and labor of love and all that. It really was. But I've written other things and I blog every week, but the material in this book came pretty easily from the brain conduit down through the other thingies that finally get to the fingers that type the thingies. And it turned into a really robust, comprehensive book that is designed to encourage, inform, inspire, amuse, motivate, compel, everything, which is exactly what voice actors and voiceover storytellers are supposed to do.
And so why don't you tell people about this book? We'll start with this book.
Yeah. Well, it went through a few iterations. I think everything, like everything, it's supposed to evolve. It was originally called Been There, Said That, which is kind of a play on, been there, done that. I've been doing voicing on and off since 93, and then since full-time since 2007 in business. And as more or less an add-on to corporate video, when I was doing corporate video and they required a voiceover, I would do voicing for that as well. But then I plunged headlong into just voiceovers in 2016. So while the book really deals with the origins of my voiceover history or business, it goes back to the genesis of it, which actually, don't tell anybody, and I'm glad this is a secret podcast, started with telemarketing. So, but it was really a rich honor and privilege and pleasure to write it and to be able to share it with people. I call it bioanextruction, which is a combination of biography, anecdotes, and instruction. So it's a lesson in bioanextruction. There's allegorical chapters. There are satire, plenty of satire. There's loads and loads of practical business advice, business operations that you don't necessarily have to be a voiceover artist to take advantage of. There's lessons learned. There's a real sobering harrowing chapter dealing with the induction of my wife for our second baby. And it's entitled When My Voice Meant Nothing, because she just screamed and she couldn't hear me trying to encourage her, and bring her through. And then both of us went through a pretty dark time at one point in our lives and marriage, struggled with something real tough and personal. And so there's a chapter that is called From Darkness to Dawn and deals with that. So it's very honest and vulnerable, but very bold and informative, I think.
And the book called, hopefully I got this right, Voiceovers, A Super Business, A Super Life.
That's correct. Yeah, it's
it's on Amazon, Kindle, Square, and directly through you, yes?
Yeah, you can go to one of two combinations, voiceoversuperbook.com, or supervoiceoverbook.com, in case, for the dyslexic out there. And there's all kinds of options. It's gotten great reviews so far from industry insiders and vets like J. Michael Collins, Paul Strickwerda, Mark Cashman, Scott Burns, Brad Hyland, Bev Standing, Lee Laird. I'm really proud of those associations.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned how you started in 1993, which was a very different era of voice acting. 93, video games were just starting with voice acting, and they were usually terrible.
Yeah.
Like a Jill sandwich and, stuff like,
Right.
like Resident Evil's early stuff. It was pretty not good. Or very limited.
Right.
Because, of course, they couldn't fit voice files. Back then, voice acting was either done in animation, which was smaller than it is now, or it was done as is most of the money now, commercials. Where did you start?
Well, again, my origin started in telemarketing, actually. So I was selling PSAs to businesses in the local area around Seattle, and it was my job just to sell. But when I would contact a business owner and say, we're airing these PSAs, public service announcements, on such and such radio, would you like to sponsor it? I would actually get to read them a sample. You pop in the cassette for the music bed, you play the cassette, have to remember to rewind it each time, and then you just talk over the phone with that music bed playing through the phone. And many times when they bought, they would say, we'll buy, but only if you read it. And I was kind of unprepared for the first time I heard that because, there are studio cats that do this. This is their job. My job is to sell. Their job is to read. And so I was actually really honored by that. And I did a few of them. The manager said, yeah, you can, if they want you to read it and the sale is contingent upon that, then go ahead. I read, got in the studio, read and went, I really like this a lot. And so the rest is, as they say, history. But I honestly treated it as a hobby, unfortunately, for many, many years. So I was doing it on and off, kind of juggling voiceovers and jingles and singing. And my heart at the time led me more into a public singing performance career. So I didn't really venture back into the voiceover terrain, except for doing it, here and there with whatever productions I could find in community organizations or, the local chambers of commerce thing. Sometimes they would have ads for their little nickel. This is well before the days of Craigslist and internet finding stuff made things so much easier. But I ventured back into the voiceovers terrain in 2007 when I started a multimedia production company for videography, video production, video transfer, and basically anything that started with a V, vivisection. And so I just added voiceovers on top of corporate video productions and went from there. So it's mostly corporate. That was a really long answer.
No, it's a good answer. I've honestly had a guest on before who spoke for an hour and a half, which drove my wife nuts because I usually time these specifically, but the hour and a half was through 3 of the 5 questions we were going to ask.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
3. Like I told him, it was only 5 questions. It can't be that long. No, it was long.
Well, I can give you the same content, but just talk at chipmunk speed, if that will help.
No,
we'll keep it regular.
Don't do that. But one thing, I have to say, you talk about telemarketing. That's one of I've done a lot of jobs in my life. Usual ones through college, like food and retail and so on. But where I lived, telemarketing is everywhere. Like Vivint, people selling security systems, people doing surveys. It's one of the big things over there. Utah, Colorado has a lot of that. And it's one of the jobs I just couldn't do.
Yeah.
Like I remember getting through like 3 weeks and then said, you're not being promoted from doing surveys to like doing like the more live calls where it's like it keeps on going.
Right.
You don't have a control over who you're calling.
Right.
It just keeps on going. And I think it was like a survey for a grocery store, and they said you can't stop until you get to this limit, until you get to your quota. And it was getting to the point where we're calling people at 10 o'clock at night their time, and it was like they said, tell them it's 15 minutes, even though it really takes like 30 to do the survey. And then I just had the power going out in the building, and they're like, well, we can't continue work, so everyone go home. And I never went back.
Wow.
So like, yep, there's a side. I like to help people. I work as a counselor professionally. I work in schools.
Hmm?
I like to help people, but that was not a job I could handle. I know some people do really well at it. I couldn't.
Yeah, I did well. I mean, I actually, admittedly, I really enjoyed it at the time. And I was great at sales, so the sales part of it was fun. It was just that I never really anticipated that I would be able to that I would fall in love with something that was just not my job. There, it was an offshoot that I probably never would have discovered, but for that telemarketing agency. Perhaps. I mean, I'm a creative guy with balancing singing and jingles and poetry, and of course, there's my dance. So I say that with a laugh because, of course, that's just not true. It's like a drunken elephant through the trees. That's my gracefulness. I'm more of a just kind of let it flow and like to create. So voiceovers allow me to create even when it's coming from a locked script that's past legal and compliance departments. It allows me to create, and I kind of treat it as a little bit of a ministry that way.
So with your book, do you have plans on recording an audiobook version of it yourself?
Yeah, well, if you run in the circles of voice talent and you tell them that you wrote a book and you're releasing it, then it's amazing how instantly, in a moment, you have 542 volunteers to read that audiobook. But no, it would only be natural and fitting for me to read that. And so I'm plan on doing that as soon as I can. There's a real big conference coming up here at the end of the month that's a national, actually international annual voiceover conference called VO Atlanta that I'm very excited about. So when the dust settles from that, then I'll probably start working on the audiobook version.
Hopefully it's not canceled like lots of other things have been recently.
Yeah, that would be a bummer. I mean, it would be a huge bummer aside from the logistics and the semantics of just trying to figure out refunds and what do I qualify for in terms of rescheduling and all that hootenanny.
Yeah.
Any chance to say the word hootenanny, by the way. There's a lot of community in the voiceover sphere. And so there's some very good friends I'm looking forward to seeing, and some excellent instruction I'm looking forward to receiving.
So, when people think about voice actors, a lot of people's first thing that comes to mind is, like the Mel Blanc type people, who, Mel Blanc's a legend. There's a reason why people think
Mel
of
Blanc, who's that?
But Looney Tunes.
I'm kidding. I know who that is.
I do know for a fact that some people are going to ask me who the heck that is.
All right.
But, they'll think of that, or in my circles, they'll think of a Mark Hamill, or they'll think of, there's people who they watch, who do video games and shows that they watch all the time. But in reality, that's only a very small part of voice acting. Some people who are in it, and get into that niche, they do very well in that niche.
Yeah.
But for most people, they do what you do, really, which is commercials, which is making relationships with businesses to, do stuff via, radio, which still exists for some people, and television, and, voicing commercials, or even for others, ADR and stuff like that. So, with you, you talk a lot about forming relationships with business, forming relationships with people, and that keeps consistent. What's the first of the businesses? You do lots of stuff for some major businesses. What's the first one that you remember actually forming a strong relationship with, and how did you, as a voice actor, create that relationship with them to have them trust you with their ads, to be their voice?
Sure. Yeah. Well, to address the first point, right. One of my favorite people in the world is Pat Fraley. And he's, go back and look at like almost any 90s cartoon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, Rainbow Bright, on and on and on and on.
Krang? He's Krang, right?
Yeah, he plays Krang and several of the other characters in TMNT. But he's amazing, but he's also very personal. So I never knew Mel Blanc, obviously. Never met Mark Hamill. But Pat Fraley is amazing, but he's also really integrated into the community of voiceovers. So he's not just a celebrity, he's an attainable, touchable celebrity, and he's a teacher. He holds workshops frequently. And there's one coming up March 21st that here in Seattle that I'm really looking forward to and hoping doesn't get canceled. But it's a really
as long as it's not an Emerald City Comic.
Right. Exactly. That's a bummer too. Yeah, it's a smaller gathering though, so they'll only have to quarantine 8 of us, I think, if anything happens. Not a huge, impact to the economy that way. But he is the guy that you think of, or that many of us think of when you think of animation now. And video games now. And yes, silly voices. I can do silly voices, so I might do voiceovers. A lot of people think of it that way. I don't focus a lot of my energy on character voices. Number one, I'm expressly forbidden from employing them when I'm reading a story to my son at story time. He just doesn't let me do them. I'll start out. Bean was big enough. Do you want me to wait?
No, you're good. You're
okay.
Good.
I'll start out and
eating his foot.
Okay. I'll start out and say, Bean was big enough. You know, the story, Big Enough, or Bean, I can't remember what it's called. A story about a bunny who loses a blanket. And my son used to pull the bottle out of his mouth and go, normal, because he'd want me to read it normally. I can't use an accent. So I don't do them a lot. I do a lot of corporate and commercial and explainer and e-learning work. And the very first company that I formed a massive bond with continues to this day. And it was for Nutrisystem. So I've used Nutrisystem. Perhaps, I was able to channel some of that and conveyed that in the commercial, which was a national TV commercial that I was awarded. And to be the voice of Nutrisystem on national TV, that's amazing. I mean, it's a very, very humbling honor. While I'm sitting here munching 5 double quarter pounders and a thick malt shake.
Yummy.
No, it's an amazing honor. And the people, the production studio that handles their production, have since awarded me many, many other projects, national TV commercials and otherwise. So that's an ongoing relationship, and they're my favorite client. I love them. It's a great privilege having those types of relationships.
So Nutrisystem is one of the ones you started with. And, one thing, that I want to point out to some people, when you talk about voices for commercials, voices for business, even voices for narration, one voice actor that probably, if you thought about him as a voice actor, would probably be the most prolific one now would be like David Attenborough.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is the voice of nature.
Yeah.
If it's nature, he is talking to you.
Exactly. Yeah, we get scripts all the time, and they come from a wide variety of sources. So scripts usually always will provide direction for how they want you to sound. And sometimes it can get a little tiring, especially if you get a reference spot, they want you to sound exactly like this. And so it's a little bit pigeonholing, but you do your best. But there still is a lot of inspiration and a lot of weight given to people like David Attenborough, Morgan Freeman, Matthew McConaughey, Mike Rowe, who else? Ian McKellen. Sometimes I see
people that are really hard to imitate, especially.
Yeah, the inimitable. Another great word to say in an interview. They're quite inimitable, Jeremiah.
I know one of the ones that you also mentioned, I believe it's one of your influences, was Peter Cullen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Cullen. He's his voice.
Yeah, he's Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And his voice is, he's one of a kind.
Yeah.
You don't really get other people like him or David Attenborough, or I think there's a voice actor that I know named Tom Kane they like to use him because he can actually voice match Morgan Freeman, which is invaluable because if they have to ADR him and he can't come in, they need to use him.
Right.
And the only I'm one of the main actors I know no one can voice match except his brother is
Tom Hanks. Yep, I knew that you were going to say that actually.
Colin can do it, but not really the other people.
Right. Well, Pat Fraley actually did that very thing, and he was the voice of the Toy Store version of Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story 2. So Tim Allen obviously voices Buzz Lightyear, but for the Toy Store version, that's where I first knew Pat Fraley was just from voicing a beloved character because my kid is so into Pixar right now.
Nice.
Yep.
And Pixar does a really good job of picking people that match the voice rather than picking celebrity voices just to have celebrity voices. They pick people that match the character.
Sure.
Some of them are celebrities, some are voice actors, but they find someone that really fits what they want.
Yeah.
And what they need.
Yeah. And there are people that are just amazing in that genre, and I'm not one of them, I'll freely admit. I know where my faults are, and my shortcomings lie. So does my wife, by the way, but she doesn't point them out. Thank you. But but people like Christian Lands, people like Mara Juno, and Pat Fraley is up there. They're amazing with how they can so modulate their voice. Nancy Cartwright, they can modulate their voice and come up with something that is, wow, I had honestly no idea that was you. And then there are the signature voices that like Peter Cullen's and like Morgan Freeman's and David Attenborough's that people want over and over again because it is so recognizable. And that gravitas that gives it instant credence, whatever the script is. They can be talking about, the new waffle burger from from Wendy's or whatever it is. But boy, do you want, your mouth starts watering when you hear those guys speak about it. And it's like, this is really sounds hideous in print. And I'm going to throw up, quite frankly, but boy, does Attenborough make me want to take a big, moist, juicy bite.
Well, then you have people like Patrick Warburton, who they get because they want the Patrick Warburton experience.
Yeah.
He is what he is, and he doesn't really change his voice much. You're not surprised when it's Patrick Warburton.
Right.
But you tend to like him because it's Patrick Warburton.
I just like it when they go, we really want the Joshua Alexander voice. That's the one when they say that, that's what makes my heart sing.
So when it comes to commercials, one thing that I know from working with lots of other people is commercials can be tricky because you have to fit everything they want to say in a very tight time frame, especially if a lot of it's acted and then you have to fit all the disclaimer at the very end of a commercial in about 3 seconds.
Sure.
How long does it take you to train? Like when they do it, how much of that is you actually voicing it there, and how much of it is you just tweaking it just a little bit to speed it up?
It's very little, actually. When I'm given a time constraint, obviously, with the advent of the interwebs and technology, I got an iPad. I can split screen it, run a timer on one half, and then the script in the other. But it's like the tags and the end notes and things like that. I don't really get those constraints too often. I'm a regular on Cascade Media here in Seattle, KCTS 9. And so those are always 15-second commercials. But for the most part, directed session reads are the ones where you're really running a timer and you're trying to comply with what they've got as a set limit, a ceiling for the vocals, because the visuals may actually extend a little bit beyond that. But it's really rare. It's really rare. It's mostly a free form thing. And then I assume they're going to cut and splice and use what they want from the script, which might be fairly long by the time I get it for the awarded job. And then by the time the visuals come out and they've spliced it all together, it's been cut down substantially. But then you also get you also get jobs that are full reads, and then they want a 30-second cut down and a 15-second cut down. And those scripts have already been appropriately cut down. So you don't have to, speed it up or anything like that.
Unless you're doing the medical ones and you have to do all the ways you could die at the end.
Yeah.
And they just got to speed read those suckers.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's just way too many ways to die. So
your head could explode.
Yeah, exactly. You could just dematerialize it. The Thanos snap is going to happen and you're gone. Taking this pill
may
take you to the Thanos snap.
It could cure the cold, or you could die.
Yeah, so don't take that pill. I mean, it's really like, and why would I want to be the voice of that pill anyway? If you could die taking that pill, I'd really rather not be that voice. Your voice motivated me to get killed.
So you mentioned early on that singing was something that you did, and I know singing is an invaluable skill in voice acting. It helps you with timing, it helps you with pitch, it helps you with tone. It also, there are ads and roles where you have to sing. Mm-hmm. And if the fact that you can sing makes it really easy. So it's not like, for example, a famous one is Jeremy Irons plays Scar in Lion King.
Yes.
Compared was not really sung by him. It was sung by Jim Cummings, the voice of not Scar. Mm-hmm. How have you been able to use your singing in commercials? Have they been able to utilize that as another tool in your tool bag to be able to, sell yourself?
I have. Mostly it's in auditions. I'm not cast a lot. I don't actually see that a lot. One other thing that I wanted to add to is it really helps with breath control as well, because I've had to learn breath control and diaphragm and all that stuff from singing. There's actually an organization called Singers with Studios that focuses so much more on singing. Obviously, there's a singerswithstudios.com website that you can go on to, and if your poison is singing, then you can join that instead. But I think they also do voiceovers. But the scripts that require singing seem to me from memory usually to come from agents, and so a lot of the times it's not really a here's a chord chart, and so we need you to read music or anything. It's just kind of come up with something catchy. And so you find yourself improvising a tune or a melody that you hope sticks, but, may sound a little bit too much like, Wizard of Oz. You have no idea. So it's kind of shooting in the dark when you get those. But I do like the fact that when it comes along and I see that kind of script that requires the voiceover, 90% emphasis on the voiceover. But if you can also sing, it may increase your chances. I do get a little spring in my step when I see that come into my email.
And, I know people talk about how voice actors is good if they learn how to sing, but I also wish that more singers knew microphone technique that voice actors know.
Yeah.
Because there's just something like, one thing that bugs me most when I hear people singing is when I hear them breathing, like really, like when you hear them take their breaths,
Right.
or they're really breathy, or the saliva, or I guess it worked for AC/DC when he basically inhales the microphone. It's like in his mouth. But, there's microphone technique things that voice actors know that I wish singers knew, and there's breathing techniques that singers know that I wish all voice actors knew, because it would help them with both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
very
definitely share.
Very true. I don't know that I can comment too much on that because my singing days were they were so long ago. So I don't really do it much anymore. And I think I'm more my stream of consciousness more focuses on just like what I would do for a voiceover, and I try to apply that to the singing portion when those auditions come along. But again, they're super rare, so I'm not sweating, at least for the most part.
So when you get a role, a lot of times I know you audition for things all the time, because that's what voice actors do. You're always auditioning. But when you get a role that you know is going to take massive amounts of time, how do you split time between auditioning for your next role so that you always have an income coming in, and being able to put so much time into something, especially if it's not necessarily this, but a lot of people talk about, say, audiobooks, but if you have a 40-hour audiobook, you're going to put a lot of time in there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still need to be putting in stuff for other things, because while you're recording that, you still need money. You still need to eat.
Right.
How do you split your time up for stuff like that?
That's a really good question, and I don't know. No, I'm kidding. It's not. I want to say that it's not too hard. I think that with my own experience, this is just humbly speaking, I'm a little bit of an anomaly. I audition like crazy. I do between 200 and 250 auditions every week. So I'm coming in, and those are coming from a variety of different sources, agents, direct clients, repeat clients, and the P2Ps, the pay-to-play online marketplaces. And, social networking sites like LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all that. But when I'm doing, for example, I don't do a lot of audiobooks, so that kind of rules that out. But there have been instances.
Soon though.
No, I don't like them. It's not my preferred.
Well, your book.
My book, yes. I would gladly take a respite from reading my own material because I've already read it so many freaking times. That's what you have to do in order to get it release ready. So I'm kind of tired of my book. Don't buy it. No, I'm kidding. Like, please buy it. You'll be enlightened. You'll receive enlightenment. If I get an audiobook or e-learning, both are long form narration, so they're going to require quite the chunk of time to get done. I'll do them sections at a time as is wise, and usually the chapters are broken up into section headers. So I'll read a section header. I'll read a section under that section header until I get to the next section header. If I'm aware that auditions have come in during that time, and I know they have because my watch continues to buzz annoyingly in the middle of that, then I'll stop where I'm at. I'll make a note, an audio slate in the recording for the audiobook and say, page 66, eating Wendy's new waffle burger is good for you, right? And then that's my note, so I know where to come back to. And then I'll go into my auditions, go to the desk, process them, send them, and then erase that whole portion from the audiobook or save it as a different grouped audition file, and then return to the audiobook. But the overwhelming majority of the jobs that I am awarded are much smaller. They're corporate, they're e-learning videos, they're commercials, they're explainer videos. They just don't take nearly as long time. So like a doctor with a pager, it's a very reactive industry. You're always on standby. So I sit at my desk and I'm marketing all the time, or I'm writing my next blog. And then an audition comes in. And if it's a smaller one, smaller paying, I'll usually wait until a few of those come in so I can do a group of auditions in bulk and then send them. If it's a mortgage paying audition, then everything comes to a crashing halt. I go in, do that audition, record that, send that one right away, and then get back to what I was doing.
And being in Seattle, you are right in the hub of a lot of major tech companies that need a lot of stuff done, and you've done work for, I believe I've seen like Amazon and Microsoft. You know, the that you're part of Washington hub area, major companies. And do you do regular work for them, or is it just they just send stuff out all the time? Because I imagine Microsoft being like one of the top 3 companies in the world as far as value, they're just always needing something.
Yeah, they're so needy. They're just, it's like, really again, Microsoft. Fine, I'll voice another script for you. Microsoft was an e-learning project, so that's something that largely won't see the light of day, where people will go, "Hey, did I hear you in Microsoft?" Yeah, I mean, if you got hired at Microsoft and were required to do some training, then you may have heard it.
Yeah.
But Amazon was it was a promo for an app, or not for their Amazon app, but it was a promo for a service, and I don't remember quite exactly, but I think the specs were for food, like food delivery and a quick food delivery, something like that. The good thing is that when you don't remember exactly what a script was for, I mean, I used to remember every single script and every single client. That's a good thing, because that means I'm doing a lot of work and a lot of business. But I kind of miss when I used to remember every single one. But yeah, I mean, Zillow is another one that was local. Laird Norton Wealth Management, another one that was local, and that was a training program. We have Uber around here, but Uber is international. elearning.net. I do a lot of work for elearning.net, and they happen to be local, but they're all over the country. So yeah, it just depends. I mean, I'll take them from anywhere. I've got clients in Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UK, Scotland. One of my very first big clients was in Scotland, and it was a massive ensemble production called The Complete Sayings of Jesus. And so I got to voice, Jesus, God, the angels, everybody who dialogued with him, every scripture that applied to him. It was amazing, and took forever, but it was amazing.
Now, when you do a lot of these, I know you do accents. I've seen some of the stuff you've done with accents. But I know when people think of English, having traveled abroad, the most popular and understandable form of English is what they call Hollywood English, the Tom Cruise English, right. West Coast American English, which you have. Mm-hmm. Do they tend to have you speak in that, or do they prefer accents, or is it just they try having you do both and they use whatever one's best?
Well, it really depends on when you're awarded the job, if they decide to take it in a different direction. Again, the auditions that you receive usually say what they're looking for, so that kind of helps you to narrow down your focus and not give them something in Caribbean if they specifically said Scottish. They're just not the same. So
no, they're not.
They're not the same. So no, I kind of have a good idea just based on what the script tells me and the direction that it steers me to deliver in. But for the most part, this is what rings true of every single audition and every single job. Whether you're doing an accent or not, you still absolutely are required to be you. That's the most important thing, bar none, is be yourself. Kay Bess said it best, if you get that. She was the keynote speaker for last year's VO Atlanta, and her keynote speech was on be you. There's only one you, and you'll find that in Elaine Clark's There's Money Where Your Mouth Is book, Mark Cashman's VO, Paul Strickwerda's Making Money in Your PJs. You have one unique voice print that is you. Don't try to be someone else. When they're asking for a caricature of David Attenborough or James Earl Jones or something like that, then if you can do that, if it's in your wheelhouse, then do it. But certainly don't do that if you sound nothing like it and you can't really be them, but also be you. I know that sounds weird to think of, but you have to try to mimic the voice, but also, do it with your own spin and your own personality. Did that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, that does.
Okay,
that does.
good.
Because people can tell when it's, when people are just imitating something, but they're just doing it to do it. You can tell the difference between the real thing and an imitation. But when someone imitates it, but they're also themselves, even if you can tell it's not the same person, you can tell that there's passion in the performance versus just them doing the voice. Yeah,
it's very true. If it's not heartfelt, then it's, you're not going to get cast. Ultimately, what really sells a script And I do a lot of consults every week. I provide free consults to probably 15, people per week. And one of the things I love to tell them is that if your client doesn't believe you, if the end user does not believe you, they're not going to believe your client. So your goal is to be a storyteller of whatever script you're assigned, to bring those words to life, to compel, to motivate, to inspire. And if you're unable to read ahead and to do that and to really own what you're reading and believe in it, you just simply won't get cast. They might as well just read it themselves. Your goal is to just get behind those words, underneath them, lift them off the page, and breathe life into them.
No matter how silly some of them sound.
Yeah, and some of them sound awful silly. I mean, I've read some crazy stuff that was, what is this? But it's the client's script for the client's product to the client's market. So you don't know the client yet. You're just being introduced to their script, and you have no idea who their clients are. So you have to believe in it, even if it's silly.
Have you ever had a client where, as the one reading it, since sometimes when people write things, they don't necessarily flow verbally. Like you can think it in your head, but it doesn't really come out of the mouth very well. Where you've had such a close relationship with them that you're able to say, "Can we switch this word for this word because it will just flow better when said?"
Yeah. Well, e-learning happens that way a lot. I've got another example. Hopefully, I don't forget that one. But e-learning is a lot more of contractions. You don't say that rather than you do not say that. I'll show you how we do this rather than I will show you how we do this. So it's much more being yourself. It's much more conversational, guy next door. And so if you see the script say, I will now show you how to install an electric A245 light bulb, whatever it is. You don't say it, I will now show you how, because those people don't want to be there anyway. They don't want to be there sitting through the 12 hours of light bulb e-learning. So it's your goal to be someone who is approachable, conversational, guy next door. I'll now show you how to install the A45 electric light bulb. You're making it engaging so that they're going, yeah, I could listen to this guy. So there's that. One of my favorite clients, not that they're all favorites, but like one of my favorite clients is a woman who produces virtual tours of international cities. And so she did one for Rome, and I don't know who translated her script, but the opening line was, Buongiorno, mi amigos. Benvenuti alla Roma, or Benvenuti alla Roma. But it was amigos, which is not even a word. It's amigos for plural in Spanish. It's amici for plural in Italian.
Yeah.
So I corrected her because this is Italian. It's for Rome. I said, I don't know if you know, but no offense to your scriptwriter, but this is actually supposed to be Ciao amici, benvenuti alla bella Roma. And I got the job, I think, because of that. Also because I can do an Italian accent and have spoken Italian for a while.
Nice.
But that was fun.
So, you talk about accents, and I know accents are very important in voice acting. If you can pull them off and make it sound real and not Dick Van Dyke it like in Mary Poppins.
Exactly. What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that last remark. That wasn't genuine.
Yeah, he's only banned from the country for a while.
Yeah.
But what are some tips you give to people for learning accents? Because, the biggest thing I know with me, when you live in places, you tend to pick it up. Your ear picks it up, and you tend to speak that way. But what's the tips for teaching people how to learn accents without it sounding, like insulting or offensive to that person, to that audience?
Right. It's not, for me, it's not too terribly hard, but it comes from just a lot of listening. You have to really listen to almost every syllable in how people pronounce things. So there was a job that I was awarded, and it was a British accent. And I don't remember the script. Again, that's a good thing. But they wanted to do a directed session. And so I knew the gal was in the UK. And so I signed on. I had read it in a British accent, and I was cast with my British accent. I am not British. Okay. So they hire me, and I get into the directed session, and she goes, hello, nice to meet you, Joshua. And I say, hey, thanks so much for choosing me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the session. Pause. And she goes, oh, are you not British? And I had to laugh because I fooled another one. It was such I got just this thrill. It was like, no, I'm actually not. She says, "Oh, I was bamboozled, fooled or whatever. Bamboozled is a poor term." But I had so convinced her that that was a legitimate accent. Mine is more of an RP British accent. I don't do the words escaping me, and I don't know why. But what was Dick Van Dyke's poor Cockney? Yeah, it was Cockney. I don't do Cockney. But I love Australian. I love Scottish. I love Caribbean. But anything that is British in particular is like, oh, I just love British. I love reading in British, especially if it's a little bit of a bedhead, low growl. You get to talk like this, and it's very affectionate. It's very close and very personal, and you feel like you're approaching Attenborough territory, sacred territory there for a bit. But it's a blast. That's where voice acting comes in, because that's clearly not me, and I have to take on a persona, and so bring a script to life anyway. But now I have to do it, anyway, with an accent to boot. So it's a challenge, but I love it.
When you were doing your British accent, it reminded me of I think it was a Super Bowl commercial a few years ago where they had a whole ton of British actors and they were promoting Jaguar. They're talking about how come British people always play villains.
Right.
I think it was Mark Strong, Tom Hiddleston, and I forgot his last name.
I think I saw that. If memory serves, I saw that. I was passing through. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it had to have been a Super Bowl ad because those are the ads I remember most because they're expensive.
Right.
So what's an accent that are you working on any accents right now, or what's an accent if you're not working on right now that was probably most challenging to you that you were actually able to pick up?
Well, my cousin and I always talked in just jokingly. We would always talk in Scottish, so that one came fairly natural. And British is just everywhere, so you can't not learn British. You can't not learn that accent. You have to be from another planet. Australian though continually throws me for a loop, and sometimes even Mexican because I'm Latino to a certain degree. I don't even know. I'm a fruit salad something.
Welcome to America.
Thank you. So it is good to be here.
Well, we are all fruit salads.
We are all.
Believe it or not.
Yep. I have a little bit more whipped cream in my fruit salad, but I'll take it. But yeah, Mexican, sometimes I'll digress into Scottish. I don't know how I do that, but I end up, I start talking like this, and I'm like, how did I do that? I have to have a script in front of me in order to do it, but I just devolve into to Scottish sometimes. So if you could picture a Mexican, wearing a kilt, then maybe that's appropriate imagery. But Australian actually is hard sometimes because I fell in love with God rest his soul, Steve Irwin, didn't everybody?
Yeah.
And so you just love the way he was so exuberant with everything he said, and like we would always joke, this crook, he's got great big choppers to bite off my uvula, and there's so many, like you could just so stretch every single word and play with it and have fun. This is the most dangerous African green snake. I'm going to put him in my mouth. And, he was so insane. You just loved him. And so you want to say those words over and over. That's a hard one though, because I'm not sure of some of the pronunciations of some of the everyday words that you would use. And I feel like I'm erring. I can't do Canadian to save my life. So anyway, the Canadian's close to North American English, but it's just, I'll always foul it up somehow.
Can you do a New Zealand accent by chance?
Well, New Zealand is very similar to Aussie, and I have been cast for Kiwi accents. But you say back like Beck. I don't ever want to go back. It's not my place. I never felt stranger than there. Your E's are going up, and your A's are going up.
Yeah, it's a little bit lighter and a little bit more high pitched. My family's from New Zealand, and so they live there. And I only pick up the accent when I'm there. It's safer.
Right.
But if like the best example of the New Zealand accent that I always give people, they want to learn it. I'm like, look at Taika Waititi. If you can talk like him, you can talk like a New Zealander.
Right.
If you can't talk like him, be careful.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the ones. Like, I've lived in a lot of places and I picked up accents when I go, but some of them just like sneak in there, kind of like how you switch to Scottish when you're trying to speak it with a Mexican accent. Like I'm banned from watching The Simpsons until there's no more episodes of Apu showing up, because I lived in the Caribbean with a bunch of Guyanese people who they're Indian,
Right.
and so the accent just kind of came in. And Apu is a terrible Indian. Well, actually, it's a good Indian accent, but it's what happened. But if I hear that voice, it just comes in, and then I like stick with that accent for like 3 days at a time, and I was like, you cannot do that here. No,
Yeah.
You're not talking like that all day. I can't handle that.
Right. Well, I used to, I went with some friends way back when, and we did this a few times. I don't remember how or why, but we would go to see the Seattle Mariners play, baseball team here in Seattle, for those who are not in Seattle. And so we would just go, but hey, you know what we should do? Let's pretend like we're from the UK. So we'll do a British accent the whole time, just for the heck of it. And so we would do that, and we'd feel stupid, but we'd also kind of like, hey, I actually feel kind of like a legit Brit when we do this. And no one around us knew, and people would hear us talk, and you have to kind of stay in character. But that's good training. I highly recommend it. Go and be someone you're completely not in a big public place, and see how many people catch on. God save you though if you run into an actual Brit. It's like, oh, where you from? Like South York, Hampshire. Yeah. I'm from Everett. Yeah.
My brother-in-law actually, since he started the whole thing with telemarketing, he actually, there was a telemarketer who kept on calling his parents, my in-laws, a lot, and he got them to stop, doing it, because he answered the phone with an Indian accent, and then put on this story about how all his money was burned up because he put it in his mattress, and there was a fire and his mattress burned up, and no one, went to save it because that's where he hid all his money, and they didn't know, and now he's and they're asking for money, but he did all in Indian accent, and then they were so confused, they put him on the, they've never called again, and they've been calling them for months and months.
Wow.
But I imagine they listened to the call and had a good laugh.
Yeah.
Having done the job, it's probably a funny call.
That's really all it's about. It's just really all about laughter. That's why, not to bring this full circle or to self-promote in any way, I absolutely love Dave Barry. Dave Barry is a satirical writer, writes columnist for the Miami Herald, and he's been doing it since puppies were the oldest animals. I think since year 37 AD, he's been doing it. He's amazingly funny, dry, satirical wit. I love him, Mitch Hedberg, God rest his soul, Stephen Wright, Brian Regan, Dimitri Martin. And so my book is an even mix, or perhaps uneven, of real dry satire as told from the eyes of, a voice artist. And then, you mix it because obviously, I don't know. I don't want to promote it as hey, read a good comedy book. There's some really good, large chunks of gold in that book. If I do say so myself, from having been in business for so long, and I share that. But man, laughter is just the best medicine in this industry. It is the best medicine. You are auditioning so much. You're marketing so much, you're reaching out so much, and you're so much hoping to get awarded these roles, because being unchosen is a terrible thing. Being chosen is such a rich privilege to be somebody's spokesman, but that doesn't happen except maybe 1 in 10, 1 in 20, 1 in 50, 1 in 100 times of auditioning. So the more you can laugh and take a break and come back and go, it's really going to be okay. That's kind of what my book is all about.
And, you did touch on something that we're going to be wrapping up in just a little bit, but you did touch on something that, people need to remember. If you're a voice actor, you have to have thick skin, because you're going to be told no a lot. It's just part of the job. They can't award you everything you audition for.
Right.
And so you have to learn to roll the punches and go with the wins, and celebrate the wins when you get them, and just keep on going. Because I imagine if you audition 250 times a week, you're probably told no, probably 240 to 230, somewhere in there.
Well, you're usually told nothing, is the thing with auditions. You just never hear back. They've chosen someone else and they've moved on with them. You're told no more frequently in marketing. We don't keep a roster of reliable voice talent. So thanks anyway. Please stop emailing me. The police will be on their way, things like that. And so you get told more you get told no more for marketing than you do for auditioning. But you're right. You're absolutely right about the thick skin.
And I guess one of my last topics I want to go out, because this is very important for people who want to get in the industry, is networking. And you mentioned how you're going to a conference to talk about it. So for people who want to get in, how do you recommend they start networking beyond just randomly emailing people, which I know does work for some, but you have to know what you're doing when you write. But how do you recommend people get really into the networking part so they can make the connections with people who then can provide them with more opportunities to get jobs?
Yeah. Well, so there's networking, but there's also training. And you really cannot join the voiceover industry. Not like there's, angels at the gate with a flaming sword and you have to pay your tuppence to get in. You need coaching. You absolutely have to have coaching in voiceovers. It's critical. A lot of people will go, I know everything there is to know. No, you don't. I've been doing it off and on since 93 and I still don't know. The industry constantly evolves. The desired voices constantly evolve. Marketing techniques constantly evolve. Social media constantly evolves. You must evolve. And one of the ways that you evolve, even just as starting out, is connect with a proven, vetted coach who can tell you one of three things. A, you got it. B, you don't got it. C, you don't got it, but here's how you get it. They are your very first investment. This is an entrepreneurial pursuit. Anything that you spend is never an expense. It's always an investment. And they are your very first investment into the voiceover career, bar none. Nothing else. So once you've had coaching, then you can gravitate or progress through that towards producing a demo, and then you market and all that stuff. In tandem with that, what I say is join meetup.com. Meetup's great. If you live near a major metropolitan city, look on meetup.com for a voiceovers group. If whoever's running it is active and informed in the voiceover industry, they'll know when key speakers are coming to town. They can hold workshops. They'll keep you apprised as far as best methods, techniques, hardware, software, coaches, speakers, conferences, blah, blah, blah. You can also get jobs by referral from such groups. Let's say a female client is in the group and they're like, yeah, my client loves me. My video producer client loves me, but this time they need a male. Josh, can you do this job? And those are great, when you get the jobs by referral. There's also, we live in such a great era for voiceovers because there are a lot of communities available to voice talent online now. There are. You have to be careful because, everyone still kind of practices their own mindset of how things should be done. And you will run into those people that are kind of the old guard of voiceovers and they think theirs is the only way to success in voiceovers and theirs is the only way you should make money. They'll say you should not do the P2Ps, the pay to plays, or you should not do in-person marketing, or I don't believe in marketing at all. I just get jobs from my agent, whatever. Not everyone is going to be a helperton with you. But what I've noticed about the voiceover community, by and large, it's a very affirming community with rare exception. And people are more often than not, far more often than not, willing to help you and give you suggestions and tips and critiques and encouragement along your journey. So join those groups on Facebook and Reddit, especially. Reddit has great groups. And then join your local meetup.
Awesome. You mentioned technology a bit, and I know one thing I get asked by podcasters a lot because I've done this for 9 years, and they mention a lot of people talk about, okay, I want to improve my podcast. I'm just going to upgrade my equipment. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And they keep on asking, for upgrading equipment. And I wonder if this is the same advice you give in voiceover. What I tell them is, your equipment's only as good and software is only as good as you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use your microphone, you don't know how to use, your pop filter, if you don't know how to use your boom arm or your DAW or your, editing software, upgrading is not going to do you any good. If you don't know how the technique to use your microphone well, upgrading is just going to be a more expensive thing that you can't use well. Right. Is it the same with voice actor? Like if you know your technique, you can make an okay mic. You make your voice sound decent in an okay mic if you know what you're doing. Versus if you don't know what you're doing, an expensive mic still not going to make your voice sound good.
Right, like lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say even more important than that, not to cheapen your question or anything like that, is treat this like a business. Voiceovers are a business. They're not a hobby. You can go into it and sure, you can treat it like a hobby and you can maybe make, hobby money, do coffee bucks here and there. You can treat it like a business and start looking at expenses as investments, something I cover heavily in my book. And really start to reframe your mind about generating business revenue, an ecosystem, contracts, invoicing, structures, social media presence. Develop something that's huge. That starts from the very beginning. That starts from your entrance when you first dip your toe into the water in voiceovers. And there's a mantra that I want to share. I'd be remiss if I didn't share this in every single interview. It comes from one of the Star Wars movies that I think we'd all like to pretend doesn't in fact exist. The Phantom Menace. There, I said
it does exist. That's my childhood. That is my childhood.
All right. Well, I appreciate the interview. It was very fun. Talk to you later. We'll just agree to disagree on that one. But it came from George Lucas through the mouth of Qui-Gon Jinn to a young Anakin Skywalker. And he said, your focus determines your reality. I absolutely love that phrase. I love that phrase. And that's my personal mantra. I live, sleep, eat, breathe, drink voiceovers. And I've never once gone into this hoping to succeed. It was an intention. It was a plan for. It was a structure to enable. It was everything that I needed to do to turn this into, to turn my dream of doing voiceovers into a full-time, mortgage paying, car paying pursuit to provide for my family. So when you look at it, upgrading your mic through that lens, plural, singular, whatever, and you try to focus on the long-term perspective of your career, the thing I could just come back to is your mic. Yes, it matters, but what matters absolutely most is treating this like a business. And one of those things is getting coaching so that you'll actually be a contender. The coaching is really your fundamental first investment into voiceovers, and your mic won't matter if you don't have coaching. Your marketing won't matter if you don't have coaching. Your website and your presence and all this expensive hardware and software and VST plugins and memberships wherever galore, they won't matter if you don't treat this like a business. So anyway, that was a little bit of a lecture, but you have to approach it the right way.
It's a good one. And also, with any business, half your livelihood, not half, like a good chunk of your livelihood is businesses training people on how to do their business. And it's the same thing with this. You got to be trained on how to do it, be it via a coach or, going to presentations or seminars or, doing what you can to learn how to do it. And if you don't, for example, this going off what I was saying, if you don't know how to use your mic, there are training and coaching you can do for how to use your mic right. There's classes literally in how to, use a mic so you can avoid the popping and the saliva and the, and I've had people that mess up on, which side of the mic do you talk into? Well, you should learn that before you start talking into your mic.
Yeah, exactly.
Know where the microphone is. I know the difference between a condenser and a dynamic microphone. They're very different, and they both do different things, and you should know. And I said, if you treat it like a business, businesses train people all the time. That's literally how they keep employees. They train them.
Yep.
And they make sure they know what they're doing. And if
yeah,
they don't know what they're doing, they don't stay.
Even now, I'm going to VO Atlanta, and I'm paying a fortune. Airfare, hotel, the registration for the conference. Well, actually, that was free this year because our team won the team challenge last year. But plenty of X sessions. I'm taking 5 X sessions, which cost. There are additional costs. There's going to be sundry expenses, on the way back.
Yeah.
And but there's tremendous instruction that comes from VO Atlanta, and I've been doing this for a really long time. Why do I need instruction? What do I need training for? Because I need to continue to grow as an artist and as a business person, always. Once you stop growing, you're room temperature.
Exactly. And I think on that note, it's a perfect place to wrap up. So if people want to find your book, find you to ask you more questions and get advice, or perhaps get one of those coaching sessions that you talk about, how do people find you?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a coach, by the way. I should clarify that. I am more, look at myself as more of like a mentor / encourager. For those people who are aspiring, I'll leave the coaching to the people who are they're tried and true coaches. My coach is phenomenal, Scott Burns. Love that man. If I left my wife for anybody, I'd leave her for Scott Burns. Oh, hi, honey. Thanks for tuning in. So where they can find me is saysomethingjosh.com. And there's plenty of resources on the page. There's a gallery, there's demo reels and all that stuff. More importantly than that, though, is I would say subscribe to the Voice Actor blog, which is the link is in the menu on my page. It's blog in the menu, or Voice Actor blog. Or go to voiceactorblog.com, which will take you to that page, and subscribe. You'll get weekly encouragement that will remind you there are people who are trying to do voiceovers and are still, in fact, sane. You need that encouragement and that break full of laughter to recharge your batteries, and that's what I really love to bring. I pride myself on bringing funny and informative blogs that just give you a breath of fresh air. They're a freshener. And then if you're interested in the book, highly recommend it. A lot of good stuff went into that, and it's been reviewed by some excellent pros that I really look up to. And you can also get that from the menu bar at saysomethingjosh.com, or go to supervoiceoverbook.com, and then you'll be able to buy it there. So, but I really appreciate the privilege of sharing. I absolutely am so grateful. I come from wedding videography. Blech. I'm so grateful for voiceovers. Just really super grateful. They've rocked my life and changed my world.
Now you got to do voiceovers for someone's wedding videography video.
Ugh. Wouldn't that just be heaven?
The happy couple now approaches.
Yeah, the blog coming out tomorrow is actually on, it's called Voiceovers Rule and Weddings Suck. So look for that blog tomorrow. That's going to be a good one.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and definitely we'll send people your way. And I know they can also get a free ebook, I believe, for helping also with voiceover if they're interested. That's on your website too, if I recall, right?
Correct. Free gift for subscribing to the blog. You get a 22-page, I believe it is, ebook on the business of voiceovers. It's just a free gift you can download for subscribing.
Fantastic. And I know you're very active in social media as well, and that's all on your website as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
People can stalk you there. Find you there.
Find, stock, whatever you do. Just, don't send me any dead animals boiling in our stove. That's just kind of we have to draw the line somewhere.
But thank you so much for your time. This is fantastic, and I hope people who need it will be able to find your book and be able to get the inspiration and help that they need, or the kick in the pants, which some people definitely need.
Yeah.
To just go ahead and do their dream, so they're not stuck in wedding photography, and move on to do something that they really, really want to do, and not what they think they have to do.
Right. Yeah, I was trapped, and now I'm free.